What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Armor of God podcast. This is going to be episode 4 of the Proverbs series, where we're going to be covering Proverbs 4. If you haven't gone and watched the past 3 videos on the book of Proverbs, episode 1, 2, and 3, I recommend you do that before this. And other than that, if you want to follow us on social media, on Instagram, it's at Armor of God Athletics. And then my personal is at DylanB7817. And we have a channel on there where we post daily verses with a discussion. And it's a good community, so I highly recommend joining that as well. But other than that, let's get right into Proverbs 4. And we will start with verse 1, where it says, "Hear, O sons, the instruction of a father, and give attention that you may gain understanding." And so, if you've been watching the Proverbs series up to date so far, Solomon had been addressing his son. He had been using son singularly, but now he is saying sons. So most likely now he's speaking, obviously, to multiple people, potentially speaking to students. And then verse 2, "For I give you sound teaching, do not abandon my instruction." Verse 3, "When I was a son to my father, tender, and the only son in the sight of my mother." So Solomon is bringing up here his parents, who are David and Bathsheba, and it's important to note here how he is bringing up his parents and what they taught him, and the rest of the chapter talks about what David has taught him. And so parents should always save time to devote to spiritually training their children. And then we see in this verse how Solomon remembered that and remembered what David had passed on to him. So when parents pass that down to their children remember that and are able to pass it down to their kids too. And then verse 4, "Then he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments, and live." And so this is what David was saying to Solomon, and Solomon remembers that. And it sounds, if you've been watching, it sounds a lot like what Solomon has been saying to us, from what he heard from his father. And so that kind of goes back to what I was saying, like when we pass things on to our children, they're able to pass it down to more people. Solomon here is passing down what he got from his father David, and he's reflecting back to what he was taught. And so David telling Solomon, "Let your heart hold fast my words," tells us that intellectual knowledge of Scripture alone is not enough to produce wisdom and godliness. We must love God's word with our entire heart. And then we go on to verse 5. Sorry, the wind is blowing my pages everywhere. And it says, "Acquire wisdom, acquire understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth." And so Proverbs has continually been explaining the value of wisdom, and it will continue to do that. And it keeps explaining how wisdom is above all material possession, above all worldly things. So what we need to do is absorb wisdom to the point where we can pass it on to others. Do not forget the words of his mouth. Absorb it so much that you can pass down the words to other people, like Solomon is passing down the words of David. And then verse 6, "Do not forsake her, and she will guard you." And so again here, like we've talked about earlier, wisdom continues to be personified as a woman throughout all of Proverbs. And so Solomon is promising here that wisdom will protect us, and it will protect you if you love it. Those who live by godly principles are less likely to face consequences faced by people who are living for the world. So when we use our wisdom, and our wisdom dictates how we're living, and we're living with godliness, we're far more protective from consequences of the world that people who aren't living and people who are living from the world are going to face. And then verse 7, "The beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom, and with all your acquiring, get understanding." And so I saw this quote somewhere. I don't exactly remember who said it, but it says, "The first rule of wisdom is to seek more wisdom." And that's kind of what this verse is saying. The beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom. So just like that quote, the first rule of wisdom is to seek more wisdom. To gain wisdom, you have to seek it out, and that's the first rule. To find wisdom, you have to seek wisdom. The verse 8, "Prize her, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her." And so what does a life without wisdom look like? So it looks like dishonor. It looks like, facing those worldly consequences, things like that, not living a life where even unbelievers would look at you and respect the things that you're doing. But when you prize wisdom, she will exalt you. and she will honor if you embrace her. And then verse 9, she will place on your head a garland of grace. She will present you with a crown of beauty. And so, yeah, wisdom provides a life that even unbelievers are going to admire. And you can think of that like, this person is living good. If you can set aside the faith, you can set aside the religion. If you look at someone who lives a life of godliness, just based on the fact of how they're living, that's a life that you can admire. That's a life that you can respect, and you can be motivated by to make your life reflect that as well. Even taking aside the faith and godliness part of it, but all of that and eventually comes from God. Like you don't live that type of life apart from God. Verse 10, hear my son, and accept my sayings, and the years of your life will be many. And so those who live according to godly wisdom are far less likely to experience the life-shortening consequences of sin. And then verse 11, I have directed you in the way of wisdom. I have led you in the upright paths. Verse 12, when you walk, your steps will not be impeded, and if you run, you will not stumble. And so we've talked about this already of how, wisdom keeps you upright, but wisdom keeps those who possess it from getting tripped and stumbling. It keeps you, on the right path. And then verse 13, take hold of instruction, do not let go, guard her, for she is your life. Hold a firm grip on wisdom, because it gives life, like it says here in verse 13. Verse 14, next, do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not proceed in the way of evil men. And so the danger here is about relationships. It doesn't say do not enter the path of just evil, do not proceed in the way of just evil. It says evil men, and it says the evil, and in some other translations, but in mine it says evil men. So it is implying people. And so this is talking about relationships. We have to watch our relationships and stay away from getting close with people who are going to lead us into a dangerous path. And we obviously can't enter that path. And then verse 15, avoid it, do not pass by it, turn away from it, and pass on. And this is similar to past videos where I've talked about like using the analogy of don't even get in the ring with it, because it's not a fight, you just need to flee and run. And this is kind of the same thing of it talking about do not even pass by it, turn away from it, and pass on. And just note the repetition of Solomon using these types of verses. We'll talk about this throughout the rest of the chapter too, and we talked about it earlier, but there's a reason for repetition. Solomon's not going to include the same thing over and over if it's not extremely important. So just note that it continues to say that we shouldn't even be in the realm with sin. It's something that we should just, if we see it, we turn our eyes the other way and walk completely the other way. Don't even acknowledge that it's there. And then, or acknowledge that it's there, but don't like direct your eyes to it and set your gaze to it. Acknowledge it, see it, and then walk the opposite direction. And then verse 16, for they cannot sleep unless they do evil, and they are robbed of sleep unless they make someone stumble. And, this is going back to those like who are referred to as evil men or wicked. And rejecting our Creator doesn't lead to peace, obviously. It leads to misery, and that's what it's saying here. Evil people are so driven by their sin that it ends up consuming them. And then verse 17, for they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. And then verse 18, but the path of righteous is like the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter until the full day. And so this is, again, common symbolism about, walking paths. We've talked about a lot, like the good path or the bad path, the crooked path or the straight path, things like that. And then this is another contrast of paths. And this is talking about, the righteous path. But the path of righteousness is the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter. And there's a path of evil and there's a path of truth and godliness. And we have to follow that path of truth and godliness, because it leads to life and an abundance of life that the path of evil is obviously not going to lead to. And then we get to verse 19 that says, the way of the wicked is like darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. And this kind of goes back to discernment as well. The wicked stumble over what they cannot detect. So they don't really even know what they're doing is evil. They don't even know that they can't detect what's causing them to stumble, because they have no wisdom. They have no godliness in them, that they can't discern what is right and wrong. And they don't even know, what's causing them to stumble. And then we move on here. Verse 20, My son, give attention to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. Again, note the repetition, give attention to my words, incline your ear to my saying. Just again, repetition of how important it is to hold that wisdom and to hold that wisdom in our mind and our hearts. And then verse 21, kind of same thing. Do not let them depart from your sight. Keep them in the midst of your heart. Same thing. And repetition of keeping wisdom on your heart. Verse 22, for they are life to those who find them and health to all their body. And then verse 23, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. And then we get to verse 24, put away from you a deceitful mouth and put devious speech far from you. And so there's a part where Jesus talks about how what comes out of the mouth is a reflection of the heart. And so what is in the heart and what comes out of the mouth are very closely connected. So put that crooked speech very far from you. What you says is what you say is a direct reflection of what is in your heart. So we need to make sure that at all times we have mouths that are giving out productive speech and not negative speech, and tongues that are uplifting and not degrading. And then we get to verse 25. Let your eyes look directly ahead and let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. And do not even look the other direction is something that I'm thinking. So let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. When you're on that straight path, all that matters is looking directly ahead of that straight path. Don't even look the other way to try and see like, oh, that's what that other path looks like. Maybe that looks like something I'd be interested in, because it's going to be tempting. And especially when you look at the other path, that's when the temptations keep coming even more. You can't get tempted if you're not even seeing what the other path has to offer. Verse 26, watch the path of your feet and all your ways will be established. And then to end it off, verse 27, do not turn to the right nor to the left. Turn your foot from evil. And so, again, this is kind of like when we're talking about where we're looking. Keep straight on the good path and do not even turn your feet the other way. So continue to stay walking on that good path, straight on that good path. Don't even turn your feet to look, or turn your body to change posture, looking at the crooked path, because that's when the temptations arise, is when you see what that other path can offer you. And in the world that may look good, but in the end, all it's going to lead to is death and destruction, and something that we need to stay far away from. And so, yeah, that'll end Proverbs chapter 4. I know I said it was short, so this is going to be a bit shorter of a video, but still plenty to unpack, still plenty that is so useful in our daily lives, and so much knowledge that we can get from every verse in Proverbs. But yeah, so that'll close it off. We will be on to Proverbs chapter 5 next, which hopefully can be within a few days. I've been pretty busy lately, so it's been hard to get out here and film these. But other than that, guys, have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and stay blessed, and we will see you in the next video.